See, that's perfect. Yes, you have connectivity. So let's welcome Kostis for open source for Telco Cloud, for Telco Edge Cloud.
Thank you, Richard. I was a bit in a rush to take the step here, as it seems. So this presentation is actually short name as open source for Telco Edge Cloud. And the whole title is the previous one plus a descriptive, let's say, text, which is this endeavor was an ETSI SDG-based solution to facilitate zero-touch multi-slice 5G deployments across multiple domains, which is missing at this slide. So what this demonstration does is to integrate three ETSI software development groups, namely the well-known OSM, TeraFlowSDN, and OpenSlice, to initially logically interconnect public and private resources across domains that make sense also in the industry worlds, as we will see. After this is achieved, orchestrate a multi-slice 5G deployment across these newly connected domains. And last but not least, of course, support specific access control and perform inbound telemetry monitoring of the device traffic. So this demonstration was actually kickstarted its public appearance in the ETSI SNS4SNS event back in November in Sofia Dipolis. And it was presented as a demo in the demo stand 1, and it was also accompanied by a poster. So all these are available if you want to see it again later on. So the high-level concept of this design or this demonstration was that we expected to have a management domain that operates under, let's say, a hyperscaler infrastructure, and it hosts the management tools of our demonstration, which in this case is the three SDGs. So what we expect to have is that at the northbound, a user would communicate with this management domain through standardized TMF APIs, and also UI that consumes these APIs, as we shall see. And OpenSlice, which is the consumer of these APIs, will communicate with the respective SDGs, TFS and OSM, through standardized interfaces as well, IETF and ETSI Solo 5. This management domain would be in charge of the underlying domains, as you shall see. So the first domain, and let's imagine it as a core domain of a well-known provider in a country, is the one that hosts the whole 5G system. It has internet connectivity, public internet connectivity, as we said, resembles world nationwide mobile operator. The second domain, the edge domain, should reside in a corporate environment, and it has limited computational, let's say, capability, but it's an edge domain of the operator's core domain. So it hosts a radio node, and of course, a UPF to steer the traffic there. It does not have internet capabilities, but it hosts and has access to open corporate services to the UIs that are indeed connected to this domain. And last but not least, a logical domain rather than physical also resides within the corporate, which has restricted, that hosts services that has restricted access. And only devices that are within this domain will be able to access these services. So this is the high-level concept. And it breaks down to these steps. So the first initial step is to lay the network fabric. And for that, OpenSlice would communicate with TeraFlowSDN through an IETF layer 3 VPN service API, and need to establish two connectivities. The first one would be to interconnect the core to edge domain. And this happens by configuring a data plane through a virtualized container lab environment that has two routers that are physically logically interconnect rather. And the second domain, the edge to corporate domain, will also have to be configured in terms of a data plane, but this time through a software-based P4 switch It will establish P4-based access control using IP and TCP and UDP filtering rules, and natively supports P4 runtime protocol to set the connectivity and the rules within the switches, and int v0.5 specification, as we saw earlier, to extract int metrics. The second step, which is the 5G orchestration, will also be initiated by OpenSlice that communicates with OSM through the ETSI Solo 5 interface. And it has two steps. The first one is to deploy a fully blown 5G system on the core domain, which is technically speaking two CNFs based on Open5GS. And this domain shall have the name of the domain network name of Internet to coincide that this is the public, let's say, part of the network. And the second domain that has to orchestrate 5G resources is the edge domain that deploys a UPF, a single UPF. So it's a subset of the previous system that will eventually connect to the 5G system of the core domain through the data plane that it was achieved in the previous step. This edge domain will acquire the domain name network of work, as we shall see in the presentation later. The final step, so as to validate that this setup will actually work and it will make sense in a corporate environment as well, is the validation or the network access. So to check that this environment works, we have three devices. One device connected to the core domain. This is a UE that it is connected to the core domain. It will resemble a standard network subscriber to a public network. And of course, it will have connectivity to the public internet. Bear in mind that this was a software demo back in SNS and in a remote place, so it didn't have actual radio nodes and actual UE, but it was simulated using the URNSIM simulator. The second device on the same concept of emulation would reside in the edge domain. It will be a standard corporate employee that couldn't connect to the public internet, of course, that would have access to open corporate resources, but could not access the restricted corporate resources that were in the different physical domain. And last but not least, we'll have a PC in the corporate domain that has a direct VPN to this domain. And this PC is the only one that would have access to restricted corporate resources. And of course, this would be, let's say, administrative corporate employee. I think the next one, yes, is the demonstration video. Unfortunately, this is a PDF, so I couldn't have it integrated. But would be able to click it, which I'm not for some reason. So let me try to do that. Yes, this way. So this is the whole title. I think that we have exhausted it. And this is, again, the high-level architecture. I think we have to use a better quality. Yes, this is better now. So these are the domains that we have at this demo. And the process starts with OpenSlice UI. So someone orders this scenario, the end-to-end scenario, and this would be the last manual step of this scenario. Or rather, this would be the last step where the admin will acknowledge the order to be processed. So the first step, as we said, is let's say, the end-to-end network fabric establishment. And it would happen between the core and edge domain and then the corporate domain, as we've described previously. So what we see here is two services that actually resemble this. And this is the communication between OSL and TFS. So what we see eventually is this service is active, and we can validate it through the UI of TFS. So this is the topology, and we shall see the first cloud is the core domain, the second the edge, and the third the corporate domain. So we have two emulated routers between the core and the edge, and before switch between the edge and corporate. These are the devices that are being employed at this demonstration, and these are the two emulated switches, actually routers, the P4 switch, and the networks. And let's say the services that actually interconnect these domains through the layer 3 VPN. And these are the IP addresses of these domains. And this is the upper IP addresses, the one of the core, the subnet actually, of the core domain, and the lower of the edge domain. Bear in mind that we shall see these IP addresses soon enough at the deployment of the 5G service as well. So what we expect to see here now at the order that Open5GS supports is the deployment of two UPFs initially, and then the rest of the core. And this is what we see here. We see two UPFs being deployed, one on the core domain and one on the edge domain. And hopefully we shall see that the UPF deployments are all active. So what that means, actually, before we go there, we can see that after the UPFs are being deployed, the rest of the system is also being deployed. And this is what we've just mentioned earlier. We shall see that the core registers two UPF, one with the IP of the core domain, and the second one with the IP of the edge domain. Here we see that the overall 5G deployment is ready in OpenSlice UI, and the same we shall see in the OSM level. So the services at OSM are also active, and we expect to see the same on the respective Kubernetes cluster. So this is the Kubernetes cluster in the core domain, and we see the IP addresses on the core domain. And this is the Kubernetes cluster on the edge domain that we can see a single UPF that has the IP address, the external IP address of the corporate domain, the edge domain rather. So the service order is completed, the TMF service order is completed, and now we go to the device access and the validation of this scenario. Bear in mind that all these steps were automated, and that's the reason of the zero-touch deployment. I will not go through the scenario. I think you remember it. So the first one of this scenario, the first steps was to emulate a UE at the core domain, at the DNN internet. The second step is to emulate the respective device in the DNN work domain. So the devices are set. And now let's take it a bit slow here. So the first UE is on the core domain, and we shall see via key locate this emulated, unfortunately, at this scenario that can access a public site, as we shall see. And the second CLI that we shall see is the respective, let's say, CLI for the edge domain. We see that the same UE, not the same UE, I mean the respective UE cannot access the same public site as we see here, and tries to access edge resources here at the IP that the domain issues. So we can see that these resources are available and they respond. And last but not least, it tries to access restricted domain resources, the corporate resources, and cannot receive an answer. Just notice that at the end of this demonstration, we see the UE that can actually ping these resources or this VM, let's say that these corporate resources are residing, but cannot access the respective port, 8080. So there is something there, and the UE can ping it, and we shall see it now. but it cannot access it. What happened here is that the P4 rules restricted this way for joining, and here is the denial via the ACL rule at the specific port. And we shall see at the same Grafana dashboard later on that we have a spike, which is indeed the denial of the accessing of this port, and also some lower ones, which was the ping request. And last but not least, we have the PC with a direct access to the corporate domain, the corporate network, that can indeed access the IP address and the specific port of the restricted corporate resources. So this is the indication that indeed there are restricted corporate resources. And this was the demonstration. In the video of the demonstration, this can be found also in the YouTube channel. So you may be able to access it in your own convenience. Now I shall find the demonstration again. It should be, actually, I think you can close it. Yes, but if I close this one, I think I missed, actually, I closed the YouTube video, and there goes the presentation as well. Okay, this is the demo effect, but anyway, let's not waste more time on this. I think I ruined your recording at the end.
No problem.
You know, this is...
I know.
Anyway, no. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, though, I have just acknowledgements and...
Just wait a second until you start.
Okay. It was just acknowledgements there. So big shout out to these involved stakeholders. And this demonstration was under the auspices of SNSJU Phase 1 across project. Okay, so I would accept any questions if you have them currently. Thank you. Okay, I think many of you have seen this demonstration in the past anyway, so we have exhausted the questions. So
if not, we can thank the speaker again, and we can leave for the cantina, and we can discuss it offline. So thanks again. There's one. Come on.
No. I think we need to do the demo again. I mean, like in France last time. I mean, it was very much loaded, and we got doing that again. Maybe this for you. I mean, organizing it again.
We are going to do a new SNS for SNS. We have a date. This week of the 2nd of February. We're going to be
February.
for April 26.
Next year.
Yes. We will be announcing that at UCS in days. We're busy.
also have we shall have a repetition of this demo, also maybe involving other SDGs as well, as OpenCAPIF, because we have made some progresses on that, and maybe you shall see an augmented version of this demo again. Thank you for that.